An audience with the king has been granted, and Talkin' Tuesday is back with television's own Adam King. I am merely Austin Ward. This is The Beat, and you've escaped. It's been 2 weeks since we've been together.
It's been 2 weeks. I've lived at Muirfield Village. I come up from the basement every day to watch some golf, and then I go back down and sleep. You got unsuited Adam King.
Well, I know you're worried about that.
Yeah, I mean, this will be a first and only for this Talkin' Tuesday. Unsuited Adam King. This is Golf Adam right here, still representing the 10 TV.
I'm amazed because you didn't throw it back at me that like it was my fault that we didn't have a Talkin' Tuesday together last week.
Because you were somewhere. You were on vacation.
I was on vacation.
No, I'll take the fall. I'll fall on the sword.
Okay, well, we were both gone.
Yeah.
But now we're both back.
We're back. We're back, baby.
But you were at Muirfield, and Ryan Day was out there.
He was.
What did you learn from Ryan Day out there?
What I learned is, and I think this is very true with anybody. I think it's probably true with you and I when we play in these golf outings. Like, it's for fun, but it's nerve-wracking, man. And there aren't
as many people watching you and me as there are Ryan Day.
Yes, but like if you're Ryan Day, you're out there, you're playing with these guys. Obviously, he gets along very well with Nick Saban, but there's thousands of people that are just standing from here to there, and you can't hit them because they're right there. And like Peyton hit a cart, Peyton hit a house. Like you saw what Jordan Spieth did.
Yeah.
So like there's nerves that run through your mind, and he's a football coach playing golf, and I think he's been a little busy to kind of hone that golf game in. He still looked really good. That man has the smoothest drive. I don't know where the power came from, but
he's an athlete.
He is.
And he gets competitive.
He is very competitive.
I've had a chance to play with him a couple times in the coaches outing, and he likes to give me, a little flack, but like we're both 12 handicaps, but we do it very differently because as you said, he looks like, a college quarterback and much more athletic, much more gifted hand-eye coordination. And I think it irritates him that he doesn't have the time to practice. But the alternative is maybe getting ready and winning a national championship.
I think if you had to say you could either have this national championship trophy or a tee time at Muirfield, I think you'd probably take the trophy.
I couldn't believe that was the first time he'd played in that.
Yeah, well, it was interesting because when somebody said that his name was going to show up on because they don't really release the non-ambassador names until the morning of, but I had heard a couple days in advance that he was going to play, and I thought, man, I can't remember the last time any Ohio State person played in this. And I think he's the first in a long time. I'm surprised that it was only Ryan. I'm surprised we didn't see more guys out there. Maybe if Emeka had come back this year, I could have seen him getting out there. Jack.
That would have been a show if Emeka had been out there.
Exactly. One time I was at Raymond Memorial Country Club, and I had a guy hit a golf ball in front of me from a different tee box.
Yeah.
And I mean, we're talking from me to you, that golf ball almost hit me. And I hear 4. I'm like, what in the world? And I turn, and it's Jack Sawyer standing on the first tee box, dead left. Hit it dead left into me.
Well, he also didn't win his match on Buckeye Q against me.
That's what I heard.
Emeka, however, did.
He's an all-around athlete. He can play just about everything.
So my question on a Talkin' Tuesday was, so last week, Ryan Day, he's on the deluxe cover of EA Sports. He's showing up at the Pro-Am. It feels to me like we are getting a next new version of Ryan Day. And I don't know so you were out there. Mm-hmm. You talked to him a week or two before that as well for the mental health initiative. Mm-hmm. What have you thought about this post-national champion winning Ryan Day?
I think it is the exact same Ryan Day. It's just he's able to let loose. It's almost like he's finally in the club. You think about the Masters, you win the green jacket, then you have a different approach when you get to Augusta. He just is finally allowed to enjoy himself as he should have always been that. He's one of the best coaches in college football. Now he can stamp it and say, I am arguably the best coach in all of college football. And I almost call it a victory tour. Like that's what it feels like. And rightfully so. He is still working every day to repeat and he was the first to say this in the press conference the day after the championship game. Try losing that first game to Texas and see how fun it is.
Honeymoon's over.
Yeah, honeymoon's over. He knows that, but this is what it should be. This is what being the head coach at Ohio State should look like. It shouldn't look like being terrified about your address being out there or worried about your family's safety or stressed beyond belief. It should be celebrating in the fact that you are the head coach of one of the best programs in America. And now he can finally do that. He can go out and have fun.
It's an interesting juxtaposition with him because you can tell that the pressure is off. He's doing more things away from the Woody, whether that's not just going on the Tonight Show or playing in a Pro-Am or whatever. Like the number of interviews that he's done about the championship run, including another one recently there with NBC, and I think Nicole Auerbach was like, I don't know. When you hear him and he's doing these things, you can tell that the weight is off. On the flip side, the competitor in Ryan Day feels like it's arguably ramped up. Yeah. Maybe in a healthier way than it was before, to your point. Like he's not thinking about the downside, the negatives. What could happen if you lose another game in the rivalry? Or are you going to get fired? Do you need to go somewhere else? Like I think all that stuff is to the side. His resume now speaks for itself in a way that it didn't before. But the competitor in Ryan Day, which we've always said before, it used to be relatively hidden those first couple of years. Then it was maybe channeled in an unhealthier way, in an angrier way. And now, well, you got the trophy. They're not taking that away. You can do all these other things. The weight is off. But when was the first time you heard him mention the number of days until the Texas game? I think there's a competitive fire in him to do it again.
Yes.
That is like more ramped up, arguably, than it was before. It's just he's approaching it in a different way.
You know what I think it is? I think Ryan Day has always had a swagger to him that a lot of elite coaches have. And he's always been trying to find a way to balance that with his competitiveness, balance that with the games ahead. And you see that in press conferences a lot. He'll start to go down a path and he's like, all right, let's rein it back in and get to the talking points. Now I think he's realized the process works. Yeah. This is my process, and I have proven that it works. He took his first real full recruiting class, and he turned them into national champions. And when you can do that, you can look at the kid next to you, and he said this before, you can be honest with them and say, I will win you a national championship. Yeah. I can get you to the NFL. And I think that is something you can't do until you've done it. And so I'm sure for so long, Ryan Day went into these houses and went in and talked to his team saying, guys, we're great, we're elite, we're one of the best programs in America. But then there's the hang up. Well, this just that. Now he can do that, and he can say, we've been there. Now let's do it again. Let's start over. Here's how we get to the mountaintop. I know because the foundation last year worked.
Yeah. I think we always hear this a lot in the Urban Meyer era. Larry Johnson has used it a ton, where it's the theory versus testimony part. And the testimony of Ohio State's program and the NFL draft development and the competing at a high level has not changed. But there is a different testimony now for Ryan Day that didn't exist 6 months ago, 5 months ago, which is winning a national championship. And the list of coaches who have accomplished that is very small. That's why you see we're in the midst of season list. Where is Ryan Day? Well, Kirby Smart, he's number one on most of those lists. Dabo's up there because he's got a couple of national championship rings. But it's those three and those three alone. You can argue about them if you want, 1, 2, and 3. But a year ago, it was, you had some lists like, well, Ryan Day's not a top 10 coach. Well, because he hasn't beat Michigan, he wins 95% of his games. Yeah. Nobody else is doing that. But he didn't have the part where, okay, well, this is inarguable. Now that's there. And I think you're seeing the benefits of that balanced with, I got to go do it again.
You know what I also think is interesting is Ryan is strategic in everything he does. He's not showing up at these events without realizing how it impacts the program. The Tonight Show, even down to a Pro-Am on a Wednesday. Yeah. You're out there with Nick Saban. It's almost like in politics where if someone doesn't endorse you, you don't need, but if you get a photo with him, oh, well, he's standing with that guy. Yeah. He and Nick Saban are getting along. They're laughing. They're chatting. They've been friends, but it's different when now a recruit says, oh, Ryan Day and Nick Saban are kind of tied together. Ryan Day's on the Tonight Show. He's on the cover of College Football. Ohio State as a program won a national title, but somehow they went from this level even higher, which is remarkable to say because you think of where the program's been. If I'm a recruit, now I no longer think, well, I can go to Ohio State, I can compete and maybe win a national title. You can go to Ohio State and be the premier star in college football, which has always been a thing, but now it's fully on display.
I asked Birm about this last week on Thursday, 3 Things Thursday on the Beat, which is I'm trying not to be a prisoner of the moment, put too much recency bias, but you grew up around Ohio State fandom, around the program. You cover it now professionally. To me, it feels like this program has always been one of the preeminent. It feels like, I know that it's silly to latch on to the video game covers, and that's something that happened last week, or a national championship that happened 5 months. But when you put the totality of it, and you're going to lump in APR rankings and NIL money and 30 under 30 lists for these business moguls that are now on the college. Like, it feels to me, competitively, academically, NIL wise, that the Block O brand has never been stronger than it is right now. And that's hard to prove, but you've been around it your whole life. Like, how close is that to reality for you?
This sounds it sounds silly to say, but when I always thought of Ohio State, I always thought hard-nosed, grind it out, one of the toughest teams you'll ever see, one of the premier programs, and you're proud to be a Buckeye. And, they're going to compete every year. Every now and then they're going to win one. They're still all of that. But also, it kind of feels cool to be a Buckeye.
Ooh, okay.
I know that sounds silly to say, but I feel like
in a way that it didn't exist in the 90s.
Yes, exactly. And there is a swagger right now with the program. And I think that's in large part to guys like Jeremiah Smith and Caleb Downs. They just carry themselves in such a, I don't know, I don't want to curse, but BA, like they've just got this confidence level, not in a cocky way, that we want to be the best. We know how to be the best. Let's go out there and just carry ourselves. And it's elevated this program to a level that I didn't know it could get to, because you're right. It has always been a top tier program. I think the conversation that we have always had is Ohio State, Alabama, and Clemson? Is it Georgia? I think for the first time in the past at least 10 years, maybe longer, there are people out there, because you could argue that 2014-15 were almost an anomaly because of the talent level.
Yeah.
There are people out there saying, Ohio State is the premier program. How do we become Ohio State?
Yeah.
Ohio State is now the blueprint on people's walls. It's always been one of the blueprints. It's now the blueprint.
Yeah, I think that's a good point, because there were, if you think 5 or 6 years ago, and a lot of the criticism about Ohio State, are they willing to push it as far in the NIL conversations? Are they going to pay as much money? Well, the answer was no. So if you were Miami or Michigan State or Tennessee, they would say, well, that's not the blueprint we're going to follow, because financially, here's the shortcut. Ohio State's not willing to do that. And now I felt at the time that patient approach was going to pay off for Ohio State if you did it, quote unquote, right way. And I'm not saying that there's the only one way to do it. Yeah. Georgia's way is different, not necessarily dissimilar, but it's not exactly the same to Ohio State. But I think those are the two that have the smartest approach. You still have to develop players. You still have to recruit at a high level, but you don't blow your budget. You don't spend it all in the transfer portal. I think everybody else is trying to figure that part out, and they can't.
I'm going to say this, and there's some Michigan fan that's going to reply, because Michigan fans...
Thanks for watching.
They're everywhere. Every Ohio State content, they find it, they zero in, they're locked in, they're going to reply. There's something about doing it the right way. And there's something about having a coach that stands at a podium and says, if you're coming here for money, I don't want you here, and actually means it.
Yeah.
And I don't know that that's everywhere else in the country. And I think that's what makes this... I think if I'm somebody else, if I'm a Michigan fan...
Good luck with the Committee on Infractions.
There you go, exactly.
Have a great week.
I mean, you're dealing with some stuff right now. You're a little busy. All I'm saying is...
We hope for the best for you. Good luck.
If I'm a Michigan fan, I'm so infuriated because Ohio State does it the right way and wins national titles. And if you look at programs, there's always been the connotation of like, well, they have an all for themselves culture, players, like everything around Ohio State. The brotherhood sounds core. It's real with those guys, and they don't yes, they're going to. This is one of my arguments. I hate when people get mad about money in NIL, because Ohio State isn't sitting down with Jeremiah Smith and saying, "Sir, we will give you $10 million. Please don't leave." You know what they're saying? Your value on the market, as everybody in the world has value, is this. We're willing to pay you that.
Yeah.
That's not outrageous. That's how capitalism works.
Also, you have access to these sponsors and NIL and Red Bull and Nike and EA Sports and whatever else.
So the $20 million from Ohio State, they didn't buy a roster. You know what they did is they paid a chunk of money to a lot of returning players that were worth that amount of money. They added a great key pieces there, And moving forward, it's always going to look like that at Ohio State. No one at Ohio State is given $12 million for a quarterback to get him here because they will find a guy and develop him to be just as good and want to be a Buckeye. And I think that's what's cool about it, is it's the right way.
So Buckeye Brotherhood, real. Michigan man, myth.
Buckeye Brotherhood, real. Michigan man preparing for Committee on Infractions.
Yeah, that checks out.
Yeah.
It's June now.
It's June.
We're supposed to be like having questions that we're supposed to be on our minds, but it is the middle of summer.
My question is, and this is a good one.
Okay.
Do you think they intentionally put James Franklin and Dan Lanning near each other by Ryan Day for the cover? And do we think that's why Dan Lanning isn't smiling? He's standing right there.
I wouldn't be if I was him.
He can see, he's looking over there. You can see Ryan right there. He's just like,
That guy.
yeah, that guy.
That Rose Bowl.
And then James
Can't
Franklin.
sleep.
It's the second straight year he was in front of him. I mean, what are we doing?
Got Marcus Freeman up there front and center.
Yeah.
Did he win in the national
Tim
championship?
Tebow. Hey, I mean, I didn't know he was still playing college football. Congratulations to
Lots
Tebow.
of those guys in
Yeah.
there. Do you think James Laurinaitis will get in this time? He's a college football Hall of Fame nominee. I don't know why he's not already in.
It's kind of insane that he's not. Let me ask you, do you think that coaching can add to that? Should it add to that?
Yeah, it should add to it.
I mean, it's
but
your resume.
if it takes long enough for his coaching resume to be used to get him in, something has gone seriously wrong.
But I think you could already argue that, like, because if you're looking at a Hall of Fame career, there are a lot of guys that played great. They might have gone to the NFL and played great, but that's it. This guy played great, went to the NFL, played great, and now is back in college football and coaching at an elite rate.
Yeah.
It may still be at a local level that people realize how great it is, which is fine. At one point it was for Brian Hartline, for Tim Walton. But that has to matter. And the fact that he's not in, I mean, he played in back-to-back
three-time All-American.
Three-time All-American, back-to-back national championship games.
What else do you need on the resume? If it's about your college football playing career, which again, that's what this is supposed to be about. And I think you bring up a good point if you're talking about contributions to all of college football.
Exactly.
But man, that shouldn't be applied. It doesn't need to be applied to James Laurinaitis. He is one of the most decorated linebackers in the history of college football.
Yeah.
Point blank, period. What are we waiting for?
It's absolutely silly. Put him in.
Yeah.
Put him in.
You going to go to any recruiting camps, hang out?
Of course.
Okay.
I enjoy that.
All right.
Watch some football.
I think because that's the thing. We talked about it a few weeks ago, maybe one of the first Talking Tuesdays. What's going on with summer workouts? How does it look? Because I think this is it's a fascinating window. We're now 2 months removed, give or take, from the spring game. Mm-hmm. Last time we've seen these guys, that's a lot. Even if they took a couple of vacations or a few days off, we know that these guys live in the Woody. Mickey Marotti's got them going. You'll see changes in certainly the true freshmen, but even these guys coming back. We're about at the midway point now towards training camp, and we know that what day that's going to be because they'll have the Fan Fest and the kickoff on July 31st. That's great. Got that to look forward to, but that's the best part for me. Birm will be out there handling all the recruiting aspect, but I want to check out on the workouts, how guys are coming along. Don't expect there to be any quarterback movement at this time, but you were talking about
a measuring tape.
Yeah,
Let's see those muscles. Okay, we're at an 8.
I remember there have been 2 guys where I'm like, I don't need the exact measurements of these biceps, but what is going on? It was 2 years ago. Donovan Jackson walked out, and he looked like he had been inflated like a balloon in a good way. Yeah. Not here. And maybe it was 2 years before that, Chip Trainum came out, and I thought the same thing. And he said, yeah, well, I got bit by a radioactive spider. I said, that
makes sense.
That's easier. Can I see that spider, please?
Yeah, I would like
to
that
meet
spider. Him. I will say one of my favorite interview moments I've ever had, and there are quite a few, is that I walked up to Jack Sawyer to interview him at Pro Day this year. And without any context, without any lead up, I just said, Jack, you're looking good, very lean. That was the first thing I said to Jack Sawyer. And if you just listen to that, it's a very odd, and that was it. Yeah. And he said, yeah, I've been working out. But I'm like, boy, what a weird way to begin a conversation.
Lean was a bold choice from you there.
Looking lean.
But
lean and mean.
Should have got some tips. What was he eating?
Apparently he was just working constantly out in the California sun.
When you work out 3 times a day to get ready for a combine.
I work out 3 times a year, and it shows.
Looking good.
Yeah.
Looks better in a suit.
It does look better in a suit because it hides it.
You're guaranteeing that next week on Talking Tuesday,
I will be in a suit from here on out. I can guarantee it.
Shoot.
It's locked in. You also get, when I'm in a suit, I can get fire here. I don't like how the arm flaps in this, so I don't try to keep it tight here. Got to keep it tight.
Okay. So we'll get the more passionate version of the King next week.
This is the first YouTube. I can't give it all in one.
All right. We're ramping up the slow build towards media days.
Slow build. 60 days away.
Boy.
I don't know if that math is right.
I don't think it's right.
It doesn't sound right.
I feel like it's less than that.
I feel like it is too.
But we'll figure that out.
Yeah.
And we'll talk about it maybe next week.
That sounds good.
Or in a couple of weeks. I don't know.
Okay.
We'll figure that out on Talking Tuesday. Thank you so much for Television's Adam King giving me a little bit of his time on the beat. I'm Austin Ward.
I'm Adam King.
We'll see you tomorrow.